When the pressure is high and the energy low, that's when your business needs inspiration to change and to grow. It's also when true captains show up. Hi, I'm Mark Francis, and I'm the host of this podcast that invites industry leaders from all over the world to answer the question, who's your captain? When you need to motivate and to mobilize, to develop and enable your team. Whether you are new to being a leader or you aspire to be a captain, this podcast is for you. I'm with the amazing Neil Mullarkey.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Do you know, the last time I saw you, Neil, I was in your audience in the Comedy Store in January of this year on your very last night after 40 years of performing.
Yes, my last night as a Comedy Store player. I'm going to go back and guest with them from time to time. For example, they've been kind enough to invite me on May the 10th this year. It's going to be one of those things I'll pop in every now and again. But I've enjoyed having my Sundays off after, as you say, 40 years of every Sunday. And for much of that time, every Wednesday as well.
Guinness Book of Records, isn't it, in terms of longevity?
We are the longest running comedy team with the same basic core cast. So people remember Josie Lawrence, Richard Branch, Lee Simpson, and I've been there all that time. And it's an extraordinary thing that we must have entertained 1 million people and thousands of shows over that period.
And the core idea, which you set up, you set up the improv players, didn't you, 40 years ago with Mike Myers. You said, right, here is something that could last a lifetime. And give us a flavour.
To be honest with you, we didn't know if it would last the month.
Yeah, would it be good enough?
After about first, initially, because nobody knew improv then. The first half they did stand-up, then we did improv. Then after a few months, we said, let's got to sell it in one direction. It's going to be improv. We didn't know. It wasn't a big thing in 1985, Mark, when you were just a child. People didn't know. This is before Whose Line Is It Anyway? Even now, people think, oh, improv, that's stand-up. No, improv is an ensemble form of theatre based on audience suggestions.
And this is the amazing thing for me and this is the skill of yourself and Lee and Josie Lawrence, big favourite of mine, unbelievable natural talent, is the ability to say, we're going to do it completely unscripted effectively. That's the point, isn't it?
Yes, and that's the joy of it. So you can't really compare it with a scripted play or stand-up. You say to the audience, give us something, and we'll do a scene in that location, with that occupation, in the style of that film or whatever. You do it there and then. So the audience's kind of judgment is suspended, because if we could say anything and still be breathing, we've achieved something.
And so 40 years, on reflection, it's a ridiculous question in a way, Neil. What are your highlights? What are your highlights of those 4 decades?
I suppose the highlights were when we, in 1989, so we've been going for 4 years, Whose Line was now fairly well known on the telly. Josie Lawrence
TV show Whose Line Is It Anyway? Brilliant.
Yes, just in case people didn't know, Whose Line Is It Anyway? So it's now it's on in UK, Australia, America, and that sort of popularized the art form. And we thought, we're doing well on Sundays. Should we do Wednesdays? We'll just see what happens. We'll do some experimental games, see what happens. And we sold out that first night. And so from 1989 to 2020, we did every Wednesday and every Sunday.
Wow.
Had to shut because of COVID. Now the players just do Sundays. And so that was a highlight, that we could do that. And doing shows at Edinburgh, selling it to hundreds of people, that was fun. It's small things that when somebody famous comes along and they love what we do, famous people, the highlights, I suppose, kind of just moments really, or kind of just the general feeling of playing to big houses, people coming along and saying, this has made a huge difference to my life, or they come along and say, this is my child who's now just turned 18. I met my husband, wife, the parent of my 18-year-old at the Comedy Store. We were sitting in the second row, we got chatting, and here we are. It's those kind of things that are more general, I suppose. And another highlight was, it seems like only yesterday, but it was probably 25 years ago, or maybe even more actually, 28, when the Comedy Store in Leicester Square was 200 seats, and it was going well. So the owners will go new premises, 400 seats. And we went over one night after a Sunday, and this is great, this looks nice, and we opened it the Sunday coming, and then again, sell out. So it's just moments like that, really, where it's just wonderful to ride the goodwill of an audience who are going with you when they know you're making up for them. It's bespoke. It's unique to that night. It's not something you prepared, not something you'll do tomorrow night, you did last night. No, it's just for you. We're in it together.
Oh, I love that. And so effectively that last night I saw you, I've seen you about 3 times. Last night I saw you were leading. And so you were saying to the audience, give me an example of an emotion, and anger and what, et cetera, et cetera. And then you play off that, don't you, as a group? And I've picked up loads of little snippets from you as an educator, Neil, because you're a comedian and an educator. And one of them, and I consciously still do it today, I don't use the word but. I say yes and, which is one of the elements of great improv, isn't it? Someone starts off and you go, yes, and here's another piece of improv off the back. So I'm a yes and guy, to the great annoyance of my children, because they go, just say but, Dad, just say but. You want me to come home by midnight? Come on. So that's a moment of magic. There are several others, and of course you've now captured those in a number of books. You've written at least 3 books that I know of. So talk to me a little bit about being an author. What's the drive to get your message out there consistently in a book?
When I do a workshop, I'll do a half day or a full day or a keynote at a conference. People come up and say, this is great stuff. I want to find out more. Is there a book? And I go, well, there's kind of this, there's that. And yeah, well, and so it was kind of, at university, people talk about the essay crisis. I've got to do it by the end of the week, the end of the month, the end of the term. This was an essay crisis hanging over me for a quarter of a century. When I started doing this in 1999, people say, oh, I see. This thing that works on stage, the transferable skills, yes, and underneath this, yes, I hear what you say, and I build on what you're saying. So you don't always say yes, and, but the ethos is, oh, I understand. That's the way you feel. You see the world. Can I build on that, starting where you are, not where I am? Yes, but means I might say, well, what I think is better. Yes, but my point of view is better. We don't say yes and on stage, but we have the verb, I'm yes-anding you. So you've mentioned 3 books. I've actually written 4 books. One was...
So I know In the Moment, which was the latest.
Yes, which is my most recent one, yes.
There you go.
So that was where I talk about improv. There's a chapter about how I came from the improv stage to business and the applicable skills. And there are chapters on creativity, collaboration, leadership, meetings, humor, storytelling, serendipity.
It's brilliant. In the Moment.
And it's written after lockdown. So I could talk about how we still can do those things in Teams, Zoom, and remote. And before lockdown, I wrote a book called 7 Steps to Improve Your People Skills.
All of which begin with the letter L.
You're absolutely right, Mark. You seem to have done your homework here.
I've read that book. It's a good book.
Because the central thing for me was listen. And then the next chapter was link. Listen and link, which is really yes and. Yes, listen, link, and. Link what I'm saying to what you care about, what you feel, the way you see the world. And those are my central chapters. But then I kind of broadened it, which is, first of all, the first chapter was learn. There's never a moment you can't be learning. Learning how you did it wrong, or learning how she feels about it, learning how he would like to be talked to. Even things like learning people's names, which I think is something people remember. Even though I talk for a day and we do exercises, they might, how did you remember our names? Well, I say I wanted to. So I got your names ahead of time. I wrote them down. I made an effort to look at you in the face and remember your name. So just little things like that. So there's learn, there's lighten. I think humor is really important in any endeavor. Look, eye contact. So even now we're trying to look at one another, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then laugh. And then the last one is leave well. Leave well is how often at the end of an encounter, a moment, we leave and we ruin everything we've done before. The end of a speech, the end of a moment. Another one is let the other person have their opinion. Let the other person speak. Let yourself be a bit rubbish sometimes. And that's how you can learn. And sometimes you're not that keen or focused, and that's okay. Just notice, for example, because you present and you teach, you know how exhausting that is, Mark, don't you?
Yeah, you do. You give all of your energy
and
to
so
that experience.
So I would say let yourself have an hour off afterwards. Let yourself have a nice cup of tea. And let yourself not talk to anyone for that hour. Just understand, like any athlete, warm down. And it's just things like that where especially teaching presentation skills, which people can be very scared of that. Saying to them, look, it's actually really quite tiring. It's not a natural thing to stand up and talk. So work out what's best for you. Acknowledge it isn't just like, well, I'm talking about my work. I know what I'm doing. No, you're standing in front of 10 people, 1,000 people. That is already unnatural. That is already stressful. So those just some of the things that I talked about in that book. Just to go back, I have this character called L. Vaughan Spencer.
Yeah,
He calls
I know.
himself
Yeah.
Elvo, like J-Lo, and his book is called Don't Be Needy, Be Succeedy. It's the A to Z of motivitality. So he talks about the importance of moisturizing in business, which tong shui, which is feng shui for hair, which of course vital in business. He has his own ponytail. So that's a comedy book. And years before that, I wrote the novelization of a film I was in.
Was that Solitaire for Two?
How do you know this, Mark?
I think it's called research. I've not read it. I've got to be honest. I've not read it yet.
Well, it's funny because
or seen the film.
The film, well, there you go. It's Solitaire for Two. And it's a friend of mine called Gary Signor, who did Leon the Pig Farm, has done many things on TV. Hapless on Netflix is his latest thing.
Oh, yeah.
And he basically said, play this character, this kind of crazed librarian who goes a bit mad because he went to there's a men's motivational thing. Men, you've got to be more masculine. And he kind of took it too far. And he said, oh, by the way, do you want to do the novelization? Because we got some sponsorship to write the novel of the film. So I had to, the script gives you only so much. I had to make things up in between scenes and stuff. And at some point I said, he had some curtains are a bit naff. And they said, you can't do that because the sponsor is Laura Ashley. People are going to get a free copy of the book if they buy enough curtains. Anyway, it was one of those things where it was good to do that because you will know it's hard to write a book. It really is. Getting the stuff on paper. Getting it down is the hardest thing. It's easier to rewrite than to write. And then actually sometimes you think, oh, this is all rubbish, but at least I've started somewhere. And that's what most people, the old joke going, somebody's a party. And so what are you doing? Well, I'm writing a novel. Oh, really? Neither am I. Just not getting around to it. So having made myself do that and had the ease of the script, the story, having done one book, you kind of, I can do that again. But having done my most recent book in the moment, I kind of feel I've done it because my real joy is being in the room, whether it's a Zoom room or a face-to-face, with people saying, look, let's try this exercise. Oh, isn't it fun? What do you get from that? How can you apply that? That's my joy. I get a lot of energy from people that they can think, oh, this is a bit scary. This bloke's talking about improv. He's going to make us be funny. Oh, no. Hang on a minute. He's just making us listen. He's just noticing that I'm beginning to notice as well how much I've scripted the conversation before it started rather than listening. How I've written myself a script for who I am and what I'm able to do or not able to do. How I'm panicking when things don't go as I expected. Whereas the improv mindset goes, things are going as they go. You've got to work with what happens. Eisenhower, a military man, said, planning is vital, but the plan is dead as soon as you hit the enemy. So it doesn't mean you don't plan, but it does mean you take notice of what's occurring.
And so how could you advise anyone, because you are consummate on stage at just being in an improv way, and frankly, a much better presentation style than a scripted, frankly. What about the people who are listening or watching who frankly are terrified of presenting and their solution is incredibly scripted, including loads of PowerPoint slides, which they're clicking all the time? What advice do you give people that are like that and should be more relaxed and more spontaneous? How can they transfer from their set way into a much more relaxed and real mode?
Well, first of all, acknowledge that it isn't that easy to be relaxed. I put on my show face and I'm tired afterwards. I get there early. But I help a lot of people who've been given a ton of slides and they're the boss and their team have done 100 slides for them. They've got to do it. And they kind of, this hangdog expression, they go through them. And it's like they're 11 years old again, reading out the essay to the English teacher. And I say, okay, that's great. Wonderful slides. Just beautifully done. Now just tell me about you. Tell me your story. Tell me what's keeping you awake at night. Tell me what's exciting. Give me a story that exemplifies how your organization, you, your team can do something, have done something have failed, have succeeded, and also the story of what the future could look like. And then they relax. And I do very simple things like ask them to record it on their phone, on voice memo or voice recorder, and then say, there's your script. So first of all, you are not having to transfer from a slide that you possibly didn't write some sort of vocal information. You are starting with the spoken word, and that's different. We don't necessarily follow grammar, and the energy of somebody speaking is very different from somebody reading out a script or worrying about, got to get the new slide. Now, you and I, Mark, we enjoy this. We choose to do this.
We do.
Most people don't. They want to get on with their real job. But if you get to a certain level, and I would say start practicing now, even if you're 8 years old, just stand up in front of people and start talking. Tell them stories. And it's a muscle. The more you do it, the more you'll be relaxed. So don't beat yourself up if you do find it hard. So rehearse, because a lot of people don't rehearse. You're saying be more relaxed and natural. Actually, there are some things you should rehearse. Rehearse your 5 minutes, rehearse your opening. Then you can be more relaxed, perhaps when it's a more Q&A thing. So find the thing that works for you. And that's always what I do when I do presenting skills with somebody. So there was, for example, a guy who was from a big management consulting. He got up, we hired the Comedy Store for the morning. He got up and started talking this stuff. And it was kind of very dull, businessy stuff. And I said, you're talking in a monotone. You're talking like you don't care. And of course, the audience won't care. So I said, why don't you just start and go, good morning? Just say good morning.
Bring some energy at least.
And he heard good morning. And it was kind of very flat. And I said, he said, I keep wanting to say good morning, Vietnam, like in the Robin Williams movie called Good Morning, Vietnam. I said, that's great. Do that, but don't say Vietnam. So he said,
yeah, bring
morning.
that energy.
And he did. And that was the thing. For every individual, there's something that helps them. Recently, I was helping somebody become partner at a big consultancy. And for her, I was saying, some people use Post-it notes on Teams. They have bullet points around the camera, the laptop. And she chose to write her script and put it on her iPad and have it like a teleprompter. I'm a bit nervous of that because sometimes it can sound a bit like you are reading teleprompter. But she learned how to do it to sound natural. And her eyes were only flicking here and there. So I always find it wasn't too marked. It was just a little bit of an eye glance down there. And after a while, she knew it pretty well that she wasn't really looking that much. So for her, rehearsal was helpful. Other people, I say, just have some bullet points, have the first few letters of each paragraph or whatever. Others, it's a story, just put story about the chickens or something like that. Then you don't have to sort of write it and learn it. So each person can find their own way. There's only one person I felt she was too nervous. And I sent her to somebody actually who understands the physiology and talks about the vagus
body language.
Yes. And she's and actually what goes on. The primal reaction to fear of presenting is based on the primal reaction that our ancestors had when the saber-toothed tiger was there. So it's absolutely survival. And so
I'm going to die. This is like dying.
Yes. And people will say, your biggest fear, is it bereavement, death, or public speaking? Public speaking often comes in number one, but it's always in the top three because it's akin to death. And of course, the comedian will say, I died on stage when they failed to get laughs. And there only one person where it was a physiological reaction. And guess what? Somebody called Olivia that I know, the Harley Street coach, she calls herself, she kind of got there. Now that woman is presenting to 2,000 people. Sometimes even they say, what about you? Do you want to say something? And just got up and did it. So everyone can conquer their fear. It's just finding what works for you. So first of all, rehearsal doesn't mean learning off by heart. Rehearsal means getting your body and mind to feel comfortable in the zone. And
I completely agree with you there.
That's it, really. And some people will want to be highly scripted. Others will want just bullet points. But what you should do is find a sustainable, scalable process. So, for example, I know somebody very senior gets there at 7 a.m. to the conference, has his PA sit at the back, just does it. And then when there's an audience, he feels comfortable. Others will rehearse it over and over. Others will say, well, I've done it, 7 times. Each time it's slightly different, but I kind of know I'm going to cover my base. And that's fine. nobody's going to say, well, hang on a minute, you missed point 38 of the 73.
Because they don't know what you were going to say.
Know. And actually, they'll remember probably one or two things, three things maybe. One will be nice shoes. One will be funny voice. One will be, they really believed what they were saying, or their funny story, or, that was a fun slide when they showed us a chicken and what's that got to do with due diligence or something, rather than a graph or, bullet points, really heavy, congested slides where nobody's going to take anything in. So I always say use pictures if you have to use slides, because slides can be great if there's something you're going to say that sort of gives more than just a picture. Otherwise, why not just send everyone the slides ahead of time and let them read
exactly
them through
my view.
While you're sitting in the corner smoking dope?
Exactly my view is if you put a big deck together, send it in advance or as an afterwards, and in the moment be a storyteller, because there's a couple of main messages I'm getting from it. One is personalize the presentation. So be yourself and find the way that suits you to be yourself. And also, well, you just mentioned visualizing, but storytelling. If you can bring a story, it enriches the content, makes it more memorable, and is probably easier to remember because you know the story. So it doesn't matter. It's not word perfect, but the story is still sound with a good beginning, a middle, and an end because you know it. So I love
exactly.
that.
You know it. It's easier for you to remember, and it lands in a different place with the audience. There's some science of this as well, by the way. And people look at slides, it kind of lands in their language centers. They're rational, yes or no. Story, I need to know what happens next. Will she, won't she? Turn left, turn right. I need to know how it turns out. And it doesn't have to be very long or complicated. As long as there's a sense of I'm involved. This could be me. Gosh.
Involvement. Yeah. You put yourself in the story and imagine the feelings.
And there's a thing called mirror neurons as well, which I talk about in both my books, which is kind of that thing when you're watching the telly or a film and you're thinking, oh, Mark, don't kiss her. Or for goodness sake, don't open that door because there's a monster behind it. And you're experiencing some of what the character on stage or in the film is experiencing. And if you could tell a story that the audience thinks, that's a story about me. It doesn't even have to be related to the sector that they're in, but it's kind of some sense of, there's something at stake here. I need to know how this resolves. We have this, and it's called mirror neurons. We're feeling it's kind of our emotional cortex and our motor cortex as well. Kind of, even when somebody's running, we feel slightly out of breath. And Mark, I'm sure you've cried at a movie. We all have, because we are put ourselves in the shoes of that person. And it's the same way when somebody says, I was doing this and I failed. And we go, and then I picked myself up and I did this. That's a story. You're already involved. As David Pearl, by the way, Pearl as in Pearl of oysters. He wrote a book called Story for Leaders. And his brilliant insight was the cat sat on the mat is not a story. The cat sat on the dog's mat is a story. Isn't that great? Because there's something at stake. How did the dog react? Why is it doing that? What's the relationship? There's already something there. And I saw Gavin Esler speak as well once, and he used to be presenter of Newsnight. And he said Nelson Mandela told a story simply with his clothes. So when he was being sentenced in South Africa to go to Robben Island, that day he'd worn a suit up until that day during the trial, but that day he wore the shirt, the traditional Xhosa tribe shirt that sort of said, "This is who I am." And then years and years later, the World Cup, South Africa's hosting it, he wore the Springbok shirt.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And for him to do that,
signal,
the Rainbow Nation, yes, the symbolism. He just said, just a shirt. Two different shirts became a story because there's so much more attached to it than that. So we have story all the time. And the thing also I say to people is, whether you like it or not, people are making story. The story of what you look like and why you're here and why you're being a bit boring. It's because you don't care. No, it's because you're actually scared. But the problem comes when the story is not the one you want them to remember. The story of how you didn't seem that committed. Or one time, this is a particular one, I'll finish my ramble on this, Mark, but it was one time I was watching a guy present and then the slides went down. So what did he do? Stood there for 10 minutes. Now,
waiting for them to come back
I
up.
know, yes. Whereas you and I have seen great speakers and probably do ourselves. So they go, oh no, the slides have gone down. It's probably me. I probably trod on the wrong thing, or I'm magnetic. Anyway, what I would have said was this, or, even in the darkness, just talk through something. And the audience, and we've seen it, when the audience sees you going, oh, right, something went wrong, and you kind of went through it, you're even more memorable than if it had gone well. And so all I remember about this man was he just stopped.
It's
Because he was kind
unbelievable.
of saying, all I am is the slides,
It's
and
terrible, isn't it?
exactly. And it was fear, not wrong in evil, but just kind of, he was fearful of, I'm nothing but the slides. Whereas if he'd said, oh dear. But anyway, let's tell you anyway, as I'm here. Or anyone got any good stories or something? Just kind of break to create. It's a theatre. It is theatre, even though you think it's business. It's theatre, even if for 5 minutes or whatever. It's a moment of theatre where you want to gauge the audience's emotional responses.
Yeah, exactly. And you want it to be memorable, and to be memorable, it has to be some sort of show that has distinctive elements to it that people remember. So just talking in a monotone voice against some slides is the opposite of that. I'm going to ask you a massive question now. It's a biggie. Because it's been on my mind the last couple of days. Our education system, and I mean schools and actually universities, isn't fit for purpose anymore. It's miles off what you need to be ready for the real world that we live in now, the digitally native world we live in now. What would you change? And I that might even get granular, from double Latin on a Friday afternoon to storytelling. But I'd love to get your perspective on that. And how can we make the education system more fit for purpose? What would you say?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, get 8-year-olds standing up in front of the class just talking about what they've done over the weekend. I used to say every business school should have improv classes. I'm now saying every school should have improv classes where you're able to cope with the unexpected. You don't mind if you don't have a script. I do think that people should learn how to put together an argument that might influence others. My wife once sort of came up with this thing, and I kind of repackaged it. Getting on in life, teams, organizations, GAP, there's a gap. G is for, can you get on with people? A, can you analyze data, ideas? P, can you present or persuade based on your analysis of the data? And that could be very small, very big. And in fact, I came up with one the other day is, can you get on with stuff and can you get on with people?
I like that.
Isn't that good? Kind of.
Yeah, it's really good.
I need to go away and do my kind of technical work, collate the data or organize the thing or prepare the slide or, the table plan or whatever, do the kind of worky work. And then, but can I get on with people when things aren't going right, or persuade that person, find out how she likes to be spoken to, or actually this person, could you do me a favor? Or I know it's been tough, so I'm going to help you now. Anything like that where you sense people. So how do we do that at school and university? I don't know. I would say, because actually my daughter is at a stage of looking for work, and they actually want other stuff than your academic ability. We know that you can show you've got a 2-1 or whatever in whatever subject, but they're actually looking for teamwork. They're looking for adaptability. They're looking for
self-reliance as well, self-starter, self-reliance, problem solver.
Yeah, all those things. How do you teach that? I don't know. I know they try to in schools. They try and do projects. And the cynic in me has seen this. Students doing projects, one person ends up doing it. Or earlier in life.
Usually the mum.
The mum. It's normally mum.
With my boys, yep.
Yeah, it's kind of, that's what happens. So it's because I think teachers don't know how to teach project work, which is actually quite a thing. Because in fact, one of my chapters in the book, in the moment, is called Collaboration. And my editor said, you're talking how people can collaborate, but haven't helped us as leaders. How do we teach or engineer or nurture or cherish collaboration? How do we teach collaboration? It's really hard. It is hard because we all kind of want to be seen as a good collaborator, but there are times when, and this is actually Nigel Nicholson, who's just written a book about unique individuality. He was professor of psychology, organizational behavior at London Business School. He said collaboration, the dark side of that is I end up doing all the work and you get all the credit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's why collaboration itself is not a good, but we know that good things can come when we collaborate. So first of all, what kind of project is it? Is it one where I go away, get on with it and report back? So the thing is, I do feel this could be done in school, university, but I know it's difficult. It's easier to teach to the test. And
Well,
seeing this with both my children.
It's
because
easier,
because there's
but
a
I don't think
scheme.
it's relevant.
Well,
I
there's-
genuinely don't think testing is relevant anymore in the sense of you've got to regurgitate information that you have crammed into your brain that you'll never use when you're an adult, frankly.
Well, I think there's a bunch
but
of
you've
stuff
hit the
going on
score.
there. There's some things you do need some knowledge. You know, you need to know your times table.
Yeah.
I think. So, for example, I was in the bank today buying some stamps, and they come in packs of 4. So I said, "Oh, right," because I said I want 30, and they said, "Oh, I have 32," because I know 8 times 4 is 32. And I could see her with her fingers going, and then she put one away, then she got one back.
My
and
wife uses her fingers to count.
Yes,
Yeah.
and for me, that is a human right. So yes, we do need some knowledge. We do need Pythagoras. We do need a bit of sine and cos if we're doing some technical drawing and engineering. There is stuff you need to know. And certainly in certain environments, technical, legal, whatever, you need to understand that there's some base knowledge. But a lot of it, as one lawyer said to me, she said, after 15 years, I've realized it's not so much the quality of my legal advice, it's the quality of relationship I have with people in the business. Now, that's easy for her to say, having qualified and done 15 years of being a technical expert. So what I notice now through my children is there's mark schemes. You can't just say the answer is X. You have to say X in the right way, yada, yada. So there's some rigor there. On the other hand, people are promoted. People get on in both senses of the word because of something else. And often the so-called cleverest person isn't always the best leader. But how do we teach that? How do we teach leadership? I don't know. Luckily, you and I make a living out of that. So that's all right. But wouldn't it be great if people could have learned that from a younger age? It's amazing. Then people say they're 30, they're 50. I wish I'd come to you, or this had been available to me when I was 20.
I think that's behind my question. I think that's what is behind my question that says, and it's a bit simplistic what I'm about to say, but, this is how my children communicate with most people. I'll text them or on WhatsApp them. And then you say, well, why don't you go and see them? And they go, it's not the way we do things now. And of course, that means you go back to schooling and you say, a double speaking on Friday afternoon will probably be more effective than double Latin.
Yeah.
And you learn how to speak without a script and to connect.
Well, I do think people are trying to do that, but, there are extracurricular, supercurricular things. So I wonder if we couldn't have something in the curriculum that brings that. A lot of degrees now have a sort of entrepreneurial communication module, which is sometimes mandatory, sometimes not. But a lot of companies say exactly what you just said to me, which is the younger generation will send an email. They won't pick up the phone or go and talk to somebody. Now, I can understand that, because if I send an email, I can organize my thoughts and I can get it off my plate onto yours. But the boss of a company said to me, nobody rings me up now. They ring me up once a week. That's it. I don't get out of the blue. And I said, why? Is that because they're kind of scared because you're the boss, your time is or they don't want to, they don't have the answer? And he said, bring me a problem, bring me a solution. Even the solution's a bit rubbish, that's okay. It's kind of a beginning to where we might head afterwards. So I do think you're right that we've got used to texting, emailing, WhatsApping. I don't like being rung up, I must say, because I might be on the toilet. I'm happy to say we'll speak at 5 o'clock on Thursday and I'll gather my thoughts, and that's all right. But I do think that school now, they don't have time for this other stuff. They're under pressure for everyone to get as many GCSEs as possible, as many A-levels in the right subjects.
And I think
there's-
it's flawed. I just think it's flawed.
Well,
you
since Ken
gather these
Robinson,
accolades.
we've all thought that, but how do we make that part of the curriculum without it being boring? Because you ask
It's tricky.
any child, we're doing drama. Oh, no. So make it interesting in the same way you can make maths interesting. We all have experienced a teacher who is inspirational. They can make geography, history, chemistry, maths, Latin, French live because they've made it applicable. They've made it relatable. They've thought about covering the bases, giving you the foundations. So I think there is something to be said for how do we bring the stuff that you and I will do with people whose company are spending money to take them away from their job to do this because it's vital to their job. Could our education system do that? And I believe it can. But what are they not going to do? What are they going to?
You've triggered me here because I'm definitely going to write some sort of article on this. Because I think it's fascinating. Because what I heard you say, I agree with, which is it isn't so much the what, it's the how. You've got to create a really dynamic learning experience. How do you do that regarding speaking or working on a balance sheet or whatever the subject is? So I think that's a big part of it. But also you have to change the mindsets of the examining boards, the teachers, the schools. And that's a hell of a journey.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting because at some point, like you said, we don't need certain knowledge because we can search for it or we can ask AI to do it.
We can.
On the other hand, if you can't do the maths, there's no point having a calculator. Just give you an example of that, which is a friend of mine just passed her driving test. So huge on SatNav. And in London, there's Westfield, a big shopping centre in Shepherd's Bush. So she put that in Westfield, but there's also one in Stratford where the Olympics was in East London. So she was following the instructions all the way to East London when she should be going to Westland. So we're talking, 10, 15 miles, Only when she got near did she realise she was in the wrong place. So that's the danger of saying, well, actually, do we need knowledge when virtually everything is at our fingertips? Well, I think we do, because to be able to drive the car, you need to know roughly how the gears work. To be able to use a calculator, you need to know that 4 times 8 is 32. You need to kind of have some of the basics. But do you need to spend hours learning quotes? Possibly. I don't know. I mean, I remember thinking that for English literature O-level, that's how old I am. And I still have those quotes. And I kind of, at the time, felt like a chore. But now remembering some quotes from poetry or Shakespeare does make me feel good. So I'm very much in two minds about learning stuff for its own sake, rote learning, reproducing stuff versus creative writing, which always used to terrify me, by the way, even though that would appear to be my job in some respects now, because I didn't know where to start. There was writing a story called If Only. I didn't know where the hell to start. Whereas if you say to me, tell me something or a story that relates to X or Y, okay, that's good. I can find my own experience.
You're off then.
I need a bit of an offer, to use the improv term.
Love that. So I'm going to give you an offer now in terms of, I'd love on behalf of the audience to know what is next for Neil Mullarkey. And I mean that in terms of 40 years with Comedy Store, Sundays, Wednesdays, and now your time is freed up to an extent. What's the next big ambition or journey or plan?
I, for the last 20 years, have spent Monday to Friday doing workshops, keynotes, coaching. And
very good at it. And thanks for doing it for us when we need you. Very, very good at it.
Which was lovely to work with you on various different occasions. So that's kind of Monday to Friday. Saturday was when I kind of gathered my thoughts, wrote my proposals, did my outlines for workshops, and wrote my books. Sunday, I had to work as well. All that's changed now really is I can enjoy Sunday lunch a bit more. And I felt I've done my time with 40 years and I haven't had too much of a twinge, in the knowledge that they will have me back once in a while, and that's okay. So the reason really was to give myself...
So you've got more time, haven't you?
Just a bit more time.
Which could be just for relaxing.
At my age, because I'm 137 years old. So the ambition really...
So you're slightly younger than I am. That's good. That's good.
It's just a soft landing into retirement. I
Yes.
never want to do nothing.
Yes.
Now, years ago,
Yeah.
I did Charlie's Aunt, a play on tour. And there was this guy called Eric Sykes in it. And he was 80. And
Oh
I thought,
yeah. He's
80, Eric,
brilliant.
why don't you want just lie down? And I could see it gave him real energy to be on stage, to learn the lines, turn up. We were on tour. We did 8 shows a week. And I still want to be working when I'm 80, but not quite so much. There's nothing I do now which feels like a chore. I'm so lucky. I love doing workshops. I love finding out about the organization, large, small, whatever country it's in, public, private. Oh, interesting. So how do you relate to clients, customers, colleagues? I love that. So nothing is kind of, well, but to grind it out. But it's really, I'll carry on doing that. I've sort of, my essay crisis, I've done the book.
You've done 4 books, and is that it? Is that the end of the
so, yeah, it's
authorship?
quite hard. It's hard. I do one day, actually, when I may be doing less work, is I've got so many stories of people that have inspired me, places. And I don't know, Mark, how do you feel? You know, when you pick up a book and in the back or the beginning, there's a thing called acknowledgements. And it'll say, thank you to my wife, husband, partner, friend. Thank you, the first person to read it. My children or my family, I was a bit grumpy for about 9 months, and my editor was joyous, and this person helped me on this chicken reference or whatever. And I want to know all the stories behind it, the things, the people that gave them. And I'd love to do a book called Acknowledgements. I kind of do an occasional Substack about it. Isn't it? Kind of say, as I go through, even going through JFK Airport, I first went there when I was 10 years old because my grandfather had said to my mother, when you inherit the house, because she was the only one, don't do anything sensible with it. Spend it on the trip of a lifetime. So we spent 6 weeks in America, and it was just joyous. We swapped houses with somebody in Santa Barbara, somebody in Florida. We went to Disneyland, yada yada. That was amazing. And then another time I was going through JFK, and I was going to work on a TV program there in LA, and I had to immigrate to JFK, then to LA, and they hadn't sorted out the visa stuff. They said, it's okay. What you do is you got this special thing. You can only do it once, have $600 in cash there, and then say, oh, it's Neil. I've sorted it with XYZ. This was one.
Oh, bribery.
So I'm put. No, it was kind of to buy a special license or something. But you get put in a place. Yeah. You get put in a special place where drug dealers are. There's a room. You can go to the toilet, but they can see over and under the door in case you flush it down, whatever. So it was so I've had bizarre experiences here, there, and everywhere. One time going with Mike Myers to Washington, D.C. to a party for political people at Winston Churchill's niece's house. So it's just things like that where you're kind of thinking, what the hell is this? Auditioning at midnight to go to the Edinburgh Festival in somebody's posh flat in Knightsbridge, a cast member of LOLO, because she was putting some money into a venue in Edinburgh. Just things like that, where kind of amazing, bizarre stories. So that might be a thing I'll do when I kind of work less. But no, I just want to carry on doing what I'm doing. And as I say, retirement is a slow landing for me. If the phone or the emails stop coming in, that's fine. But people still seem to want me, and I still seem to enjoy it. So I'm going to carry on. I'll have my Sundays off now. My Sunday lunch I can enjoy, because that's kind of the thing, Mark. For 40 years, I kind of had this in my head of 2 o'clock Sunday. I better just kind of be careful of my voice and stuff like that. Yeah. And especially with children, because you have to get up on a Monday morning. Before children, I could, the comedian's life was stay in bed till noon, so Monday was no different from Saturday, whatever. But because I had then to kind of, with work as well, Monday to Friday became more of a thing for me. Sunday became just, it's quite hard work now, coming home, getting to bed I have to get to 10:30 because I wake up at 6:30 to get both my children play music, and I get them up at 6:30 to do their tuba or trombone before school. Anyway, these are minutiae, but you can see what I'm saying. It's kind of,
Love it,
now
yeah.
I can go to bed a bit earlier on a Sunday or go and see somebody else, which has been fun for me too as well.
Love that. Now, the final, and it's an important question, but before I do, I'm going to read out when
Lord.
I have written out what ChatGPT says about you in terms of, and here's what I punch in. What makes Neil Mullarkey special? And it churns it out immediately. It's really cool, actually. So I'm going to read it out and see what you like. See if you like it. I'll give you the top 3 because it gives about 8 or 9.
Yes.
Here are the top 3. Elite improviser.
Oh, yes, you must send me this.
Nice
Hello,
one.
thank you.
Good start, isn't it? Elite improviser. Second, teacher and mentor.
Oh, lovely.
Good one, isn't it?
Yes.
I like that. And I'm just disappointed it doesn't say this about me. Now, this is a lovely. These are some of the best I've seen. Longevity of influence beyond comedy.
Oh my goodness!
Isn't that cool?
You've prompted it well. Those are all things I would like to have said about myself. So I'm very happy.
I know, that's why I want them to say it about me. I'm just very disappointed.
Well, have you? You're modestly, you haven't done it for yourself. I'll have to do it for you now.
Do you know I haven't? I will. And if it doesn't say that, I'll start to feed it in.
You'd be amazed by all the nice things people say about you. But I think those are all things
because that picks it all up, doesn't it? That's the point. That does come from.
That is exactly
feedback
what
that you'll have had.
Yeah, well, that's great. Those are all things I would be happy to have as my epitaph.
Elite
very
improviser, teacher and mentor, longevity of influence beyond comedy.
Yeah, because actually,
gravestone.
There was a kind of thing of, what are you doing? You're doing less comedy. You're doing that thing. Is that selling out? Is that because you can't get work? And I said, no, I actually love this stuff. I love meeting people who don't do what I do, who are a bit scared of what I do, and I can say, well, actually, you can do more than you thought. I can lend you some stuff. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, people who've done improv, written about improv, talked about presenting, and I can share that with you and then have them come back to me by the end of the day. And you can see, we sometimes video the change. They've become more of themselves, but actually had more confidence in how they play themselves.
Of all the subjects I teach and train, presenting is the one where you can see the change in one day or less than a day, exactly as you describe, a bit mumbly and bumbly and saying like and you know what and obviously way too much. And then boom, with a bit of coaching and encouragement, you can transform that it's really cool. Final big question. What specific advice would you give a leader of 2026 in any context, whether you're leading in the school or in a business or in a sports team? What top tip would you give a leader to be a brilliantly effective leader in today's world?
2 things. Actually, in improv, this is the advice we give, which is hold on tight, let go light. It's kind of
hold on tight, let go light.
Yes, exactly. Well, they probably have it as the adverb. So hold on tightly, let go lightly, which is, you are an expert leader. The number of times I say, who's an expert? Oh, not really. No, you know something. You've been around. You're a leader for reasons that you know the topic or whatever. You don't know everything, but be confident that you know stuff, but also be curious. What can you learn? Never stop learning. And you can learn it from people outside your industry. You can learn it from young people. There's always something to learn. So this paradox, which is be confident in what you do know, but also be curious in what you've got to learn.
Oh, that's great. What a great way to conclude a brilliant discussion. I salute you, Captain Neil Mullarkey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Francis.